With movies like The Thing and The Body Snatchers, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, whichever version you want of it, there's been many movies, books and the like about this subject, and it's about the external visage of a creature remaining the same, but the inside, the soul, having been corrupted and possessed. I think we all know from experience that at times we provoke very strong responses in people. Sometimes to the point where often it's based in wishful thinking, delusion, and the grass always being greener on the other side, but people see something in us, or we see something in them, which makes us question the very fabric of the life we've chosen, the people that we're surrounded by. Remember as a kid watching a TV show here in the UK called Butterflies, written by the wonderful Carla Lane. And you know, as a child you just see the situation as it's presented to you, and you don't read any of the subtle tones that are hidden slightly below the surface, or even the obvious ones sometimes. But it was about a woman in her 40s who was very settled, dentist husband, to teenage sons, and life was mind-numbingly and crushingly predictable, but it was safe. And she met a man in the park, a guy called Leonard, and the whole series was about the conflict between the mind-numbing anesthesia of her middle-class safe life and the promise of passion that this guy who really did fall in love with her had for her. And she never really succumbed to the temptation. And the whole series, although written in a very, or performed and directed probably in a very clumsy 1970s safe fashion, it would be a tour de force if written today, or if actually created and made today, made solid, put on celluloid. But how many times it's probably got a 100% accuracy that people in the choices that they make in their relationships end up facing what this character of Rhea did when she met Leonard jogging in the park, of questioning the very fabric of their reality. And sometimes, and obviously the implication was great here, that the financial and solid bricks and mortar stability of Rhea's life was what kept her in place and away from passion. Now, I can truthfully and confidently say that it's never happened to me where I've been in a position where I've seen a human dove of peace, love and freedom when I feel completely locked into a position that I don't want to be in. But I freely admit that I have been that force that has pushed people into a position where they've been more than ready and willing to accept that dove of peace when it flies past them. And I'm not particularly proud of that fact. The demands and the petulant insecurity that I've made in relationships, it's not a good look, and it never is. My whole adult life I've craved that one-on-one relationship, and sometimes I've settled for less than love. I think a lot of us have done that, and I know for a fact people have done that with me, for sure. And it's so very easily broken, that connection that doesn't exist in the first place at the level it needs to be to keep you together and happy. And I think a lot of us are very frightened of solitude. We make some disastrous choices as a result, and I think also we make choices when we're too young and naive that affect so much of our lives that we hadn't really thought about, because it's only retrospectively that you truly see how disastrous a vast percentage of relationships really are. A spirit that seems so unfettered and free and untouched by society and cliches and assumption and expectation. As with Rhea and Leonard, in the TV series that I mentioned earlier, but all too soon, if Rhea had decided to go and follow her passion, everything that was new, fresh and exciting about a person becomes something that is predictable, becomes something that is, it's something that you can rely on, and that's something a vast percentage of us humans struggle with. I know at times in my life I've been victim and perpetrator. I don't think perpetrator is really the correct word, but I've been that person who has made people question their normality, their reality, and I've also been on the receiving end of it. And we just aren't designed for monogamy, and I'm not talking about that as some kind of excuse for a complete sexual free-for-all. I just think that what we require from people we can never have from just the one. And as I've got older, I've realised I'd rather have nobody, and to be fair, I've had that enforced upon me because of the kind of person I am and continue to be. But I'd rather be with nobody than enforce my insecurities and my expectations that one person can fit all requirements we have, which is the person I am. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I guess it's a subject that's easier talked about when you've been passively involved in it, but I've had times in my life up until extremely recently where people present themselves as being so confidently into your ideas, what and who you are. And I'm not talking about on a romantic level, but unfortunately if that person happens to be in a romantic clinch, they're going to see the relief and the need for other people's spirits and souls in their significant other's life as a humongous threat. And it always amazes me how people think that you can't see through it, and how people can go from wanting to commune with you on a very regular basis to not wanting to talk at all. They still want to talk, but their present is far too threatened by your presence to be a feasible and manageable friendship. Not bothered by any of this, it's just a reality that no one tends to talk about. I have been that person on occasion who's challenged people's reality, and they've been drawn towards me in all sorts of ways, sometimes in the most intense ways that a human being can feel, and to talk about it is very awkward because it really does sound like you've got tickets on yourself. You start talking about what a influence you've been on people, but you know, all too soon all I can say about it is, yeah, I've changed people's lives exponentially, but they've either in very short increments of time or long ones, they've moved away again because of the intensity of the person that I truly am. You know, I've been that person who challenged everything of that person's status quo, and been that bogus representative of the dove of peace and freedom. And you know, the same situation befell me in months or years to come, where my perceived freedom and joy was something that became throttling and uncomfortable to be around. Now, I'm very aware of the intensity of what and who I am, and intensity sounds like I'm romanticising myself, you know. Basically, maybe interchange the word intensity with the word bastard. It's just such a shame that in the same space we can be so reliant on people and so repelled by the norm that we've created between us. You know, some people it's beyond that, and relationships are abusive for sure, but it's such a shame that we can't, as a species, just get past this and realise that we need, I would argue, either no input or multiple inputs on a very deep level. And as I say, it's not an excuse. Don't mistake this for some kind of analogy for sex, because it isn't. But yeah, I've seen it many times where I've pushed too many buttons and people have got incredibly jealous when I'm no threat whatsoever. And I know you'll recognise and understand what I'm saying. And it isn't a situation where I fancy myself or I've got tickets on myself. It's just a subject that needs broaching, and I feel sorry for those people who were at any point in their life in need of the spiritual warmth and the intellectual input from other people. But your normality, my normality, it's happened to me, stopped you from being the person you truly needed to be, and it's only delaying a very, very ugly inevitable, which is either very messy breakups and ends of friendships and relationships, or a lifetime being with the wrong person. I'm also very aware of the void of people who don't seem to operate on any emotional level whatsoever, and you do find them, and I'm aware of some of them on the periphery of my life. There's nothing that's in my face or bothering me. There's no real intrusion from outside like I had just 4 months ago in my life. You know, I'm sort of on an even keel, but I do see people who just operate on a pure animalistic level. But then again, animalistic is completely unfair, because I've seen strong bonds and emotional responses from animals towards people and their fellow creatures on this planet. You know, but there are people out there who, I don't think it comes down to narcissism or psychopathy or anything like that, but they are just emotionally dead. I think so many of us get to the second half of our lives and realise, I mean me to a vastly exaggerated level, that we spent so much of our life lying because we didn't fit in. And it's not to make excuses, but it's like the anglerfish, isn't it, having that light as a lure in front of its mouth. You know, I think a lot of us can understand that we understand that to lure in what we need to just survive on a very basic, fundamental level, we can't be ourselves. And you know, it's had disastrous consequences in my life, and to be 50, just about to turn 51, and thinking about this stuff and actually confronting it for the first time with the help of a counsellor, I was so cynical and disbelieving that it would ever help me, but it has done. To realise I was never malicious, just trying to survive and never feeling good enough. And it did run a lot deeper than that, and I was a nasty piece of work as well. But you know, there is so much in nature. As I say, the anglerfish is just the classic example, with the light to entice and lure. Once in my life, in a very insecure relationship, I realised somebody was cheating on me, and it took a while to make the decision, but thankfully it was kind of forced upon me. And I said to this person, no more. And yeah, what had started off as exciting and interesting between us soon deteriorated into mind-numbing predictability. Human beings have got a finite amount of surprises they're going to be able to give you. And more or less 2 months to the day after we finally went our separate ways, I got a text saying, "You were right. He fucked me and chucked me," to quote the text I got. And by that point I'd already moved on, and it wasn't in a healthy way, sort of saying yeah, I found my strength, I found my voice and everything. It was because someone else had come into my life, and I just altered the characters around. You know, it's like when a person drops out of a sitcom, an actor moves on, let's say, and they do that thing where they replace the character with another actor or actress, and it is so jarring, and it's never quite the same again. But you know, it's testament to the fact that we just go through our lives. Not everybody, but a lot of us really can relate to just making disastrous choices on an emotional level because we're too frightened to be alone. But how many times have you, I, been on either the giving or receiving end of colossal insecurity based around disastrous relationships that started off with the best of intent and was so liberating when first you started sharing your time with that person, or them with you, and it becomes a predictable mind melting exercise in codependency as opposed to anything of love, joy and passion. There are always going to be notable exceptions with people out there who are truly made for each other, but yeah, I can speak from experience that yeah, I've been around the block a few times and have made one decision in that whole time that I don't really look back on and think, what the hell was I thinking? And some of those experiences were wonderful, but they were all an exercise in no self-awareness and complete delusion. I'm not so naive and cynical as to think that I'm somehow victim to anything. I just think that as human beings we need to be discussing the truth and not the fantasy. And the truth is, and I think I can say this with about 95% accuracy, that we need more than the I mean it's acknowledged as being a state of mild madness when you fall in love, and we give up so much and commit to so much that we know nothing about, based on huge emotional and hormonal rushes, and even less than that sometimes. And it's on so many occasions it's just doomed. Throw someone like me into the mix as well, and it's ultra doomed, because up until with every relationship I've ever started, I haven't had a clue who the fuck I am. And it's only in the last 3 years that I've begun to come to terms with who I truly am on so many levels. And no wonder nothing worked. I never did look elsewhere though. I was always, I think that I've never known this, but I think on a subconscious level I've always felt it, and it's a lyric that has meant a lot to me, and I actually understand it now, which is, realise it's within yourself because you're going to find it nowhere else. And there are people who've come along in very recent history who are magical beings who I know I'd have quite a lot of confidence in this, that I think I caused some issues and problems in their interpersonal relationships just by being the person I am. And that's sad, it really is. So I'm a threat to nobody. My state of mind these days as well, I just feel so contented and so happy in the sense of day-to-day living, just being me and my daughter that I have to think about. I got a lot of love for people and I care passionately, and I'm at a point in my life where I'm looking for nothing. I'm on a level, apart from the distraction of the biological, which peaks and flows and then drops, you know, my sort of stage of life. Summertime's a nightmare biologically for men, with just the amount of beauty on display. But I'm not fooled by it anymore, and gentlemen can do something to relieve the craziness of desire. And I think there should be some kind of mandatory rule that before going to nightclubs and pubs, maybe men should give a little donation at the door to make them slightly more inert, to stop being such a intrusive threat to women's pleasant nights out, you know. I say that with my tongue firmly in my cheek, but there's a nugget of truth in there, nugget of real feeling. Projection all the way. But you know, I feel sorry for people who are still in that particular kettle of fish, piloting that boat, whichever analogy you want, where you are stopped from communing with people because of some misguided loyalty to somebody who really you shouldn't be with in the first place. God bless.